Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, STEEZY.Digital and RealNurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to Lockbox. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and today I'm here with Samson Jagoras.
What's up, buddy? How are you doing?
Hanging in there. So why don't you tell our listeners, who you are and where you're from?
So Samson Jagoras. I live up in northern Colorado. Grew up a Los Angeles kid, played football, made a little stint through New Mexico, ended up Colorado playing football, met my wife, and I just never left. And I've done everything from traded commodities as a commodities broker in 2008 during the housing crash. And then we spun up a marketing and technology company, did that for about 9 years. And then I've been investing all along the way, built a couple of businesses along the way. And now I'm the VP of Strategic Investments with RE/MAX Commercial here in Colorado, focused specifically on, building internal development and investment types of real estate deals. And then I'm also the president of Growth View Properties, and we're doing syndicated multifamily deals throughout the United States.
Awesome. And as far as real estate, what got you into it? Was it your exposure to commodities brokering and then looking at all different types of investments and kind of stumbling into it? Or what was the story with getting into real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I grew up in a blue collar house. So my dad was a contractor and a carpenter. And so I always grew up on that side of the business. So he would work in these just incredible homes, He was working for the CEO of Robinson's May, which is not around anymore, but, it's equivocal to like JCPenney's and Macy's and whatnot. And, big time movie stars. We grew up in Los Angeles, right? So he was tapped in, but, I saw my dad work really hard on these homes, and then we would go home to our house that wasn't that nice. And so I knew I never wanted to be in the contracting space. The allure of entrepreneurship was something that interested me, but I didn't really have any examples. My dad tried to run his own business a couple of times, but he was really like a solopreneur, a sole proprietor. He built a glorified job for himself in a lot of cases. So when I went to school, I thought I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and playing football and trying to get a degree in human physiology, I couldn't maintain the grades I needed to really get into med school. And thankfully I didn't, because I'm pretty sure I would have quit. I just don't know if being a doctor is for me. I'm too outgoing. I like to just be out and kind of do my own thing, and being in an office all day would probably drive me nuts. But when I was getting ready to graduate, my father-in-law was a commodities broker. 6 months before that, I didn't even know what a commodity was. But he had done that for a very long time. And he said, "Hey, I think you could be pretty good at this, right? You got to be competitive. You got to sell. You got to be charismatic, and everything you need to know about the investment side. Shoot, I can teach you how to do that. I've done this for 30 years. So I graduated on a Friday with a degree in human physiology, and I walk into a Futures and Commodities brokerage on a Monday. And 3 months later, on September 29th, 2008, the Dow Jones fell 777 points in a single day. And we were in the midst of the economic housing crisis.
Wow.
But the one thing that I saw consistently amongst my customers were the ones that actually owned hard assets: pig farmers, ranchers, gold producers, gold sellers, oil producers. They always seemed to make money because they controlled hard assets. And the way that they approached the futures markets was to hedge their bets and control their risk. The people that consistently made it really big and lost were the speculators. And so that was kind of my first look at just owning assets. And then obviously the market was pretty primed in 2008. So my wife and I kind of started looking around and bought our first house, and that was like the first step. And then we started pulling equity out of our house to start buying rental properties, and the rest is kind of history after that.
Yeah. Interesting. So through that process, you got exposed to real estate in different ways. That's interesting as well that your father was a contractor. My father was a plumbing contractor. He mainly did commercial, but very similar to where, blue collar dad woke up early, had a sole proprietorship. And basically, I worked with him for one summer in high school just to see what it was all about. Made prevailing wage as a high school student, which was amazing. It was like $40 an hour, in 2007, 6, 7 at time. And he told me something that always resonated with me. You kind of came to this conclusion on your own. But what my father said to me is, he handed me this check for the week, and I was just blown away at the money. He said, Jeff, I am 52 and I am tired. Right? Like I've been working this business for 30 years, and when one of my guys doesn't show up, I'm in there digging the ditch. As the owner of the company, like he's like, look, make money with your mind.
Yeah.
He told me that as a 16-year-old, and I just remember that to this day. Like that has guided the next 15 years of my life, to where I always look at opportunities like, okay, how is this going to be taxing of basically my time, my physical body, my energy, and really trying to efficiently design my life. And it seems like you came to that conclusion on your own, which is great, and found real estate.
I love that. Lifestyle design, I think, is the biggest key, I watched my dad just work himself to the bone. I mean, including up until like this last year, he kept trying to work for himself and he worked for other companies. And I finally convinced him to just go work for another company and kind of take a step back. But that's the nature of craftsmen, right? Like they have to put their hands on it. So I became obsessed with just ways to create more time freedom for myself. Right. And creating a business, owning properties that generate cash flow, having other people that work for you. Those are all ways to give yourself time freedom and ultimately do the things that we really care about, which is, I have two beautiful girls that I get to see them every day for breakfast, and I get to take them to school twice a week and pick them up twice a week and go to gymnastics and do all that stuff. And that at the end of the day is, that's true wealth to me. Right.
Yep.
So, you can make a lot of money and you can work 8, 9, 12 hours a day. But at the end of the day, you're going to pick your head up one day and be like, damn, I missed out on a lot of stuff.
That's right. And having that level of focus on time freedom, especially, in the real estate world, I think it's rare, because a lot of people get in real estate for the money, but then they don't realize how much it's consuming their time, money, and energy. All of a sudden now they're working retail hours. They're, working on holidays. They're at the beck and call of their clients. They're responding to texts at 11 p.m., right? They just don't have that level of time freedom that they truly want. And so, what has been the single most important action that you've been able to take to help create that time freedom in your life?
Yeah. So I focus a lot on just who's on my team, surrounding myself with really good partners who fill in gaps where maybe I'm weak. You've been in the marketing space, right? So you understand that sometimes there's a task that you're capable of doing, but it'll take you about 4 times longer than the person next to you who has, much better skill set in that area. So delegation is crucial. Delegate early and often. I learned a long time ago that business really breaks down into 3 categories. You got sales and marketing, operations, and HR and finance. And so you can only do one of those well at a certain time, like if you're in the brokerage business, for example, you're hustling hard, you're grinding, you're soliciting, you're getting customers, you're getting listings, boom, you're in the mix. Now you got listings, you have no time to solicit. Right. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword. So the way my thought process works, like when I come into the brokerage business, is I'm trying to build a team from day one. It's like, if I can find some young, hungry guy who wants to solicit 24/7 so that I can just be doing meetings, I'll pay him 25%, 30% of every commission, because I can do 10x as much. I get my time back. And then on the investment side, I just find partners who are, better. Like, for example, like a development deal. I know a good amount, but I don't know as much as my engineer buddy who has, 40 years in the business, who's a development consultant. He knows way more, but he doesn't know how to go raise money. So we come together and it's like, okay, this is a good marriage, right? We can help each other out substantially. Otherwise, I probably would have quit 100 times over trying to do development stuff, because it's a lot of work. There's a time knowledge gap that you have to get over,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the value of teams. Yep. 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It equals 11, right? Because you're both focusing on your own genius zone, and the output is so much more when you do that. And you have more time freedom, you have more happiness. It's just the way to do it. Yep. So, with that being said, I want to learn a little bit more about the marketing technology. Like, obviously, I'm a marketing technology guy. That's super intriguing. You breezed over it. You spent 9 years of your life building this company. So, what does it do? And are you still a part of it?
Yeah, so I'm still an equity holder, and I love that company, man. I was so fortunate enough to be a part of that and learn and grow as a professional. And, we work specifically with small to medium-sized business. So I was able to poke my head inside of thousands of businesses, right, and see people who did it well and people who didn't do it well. It's also incredibly motivating sometimes to look and say, if this freaking guy can do it, like anybody can actually do it with a ton of grit. You know what I mean? But when 2008 happened, so the firm that we had, the trading firm, my father-in-law he'd been in that business for about 30 years. And so when the world melted down, he had already gone through the savings and loan crisis. He had already gone through the dot-com bubble. 2008, he was pretty exhausted. Every 8 to 10 years, you're going to deal with some sort of cycle in the current fiat money economy that we live in. So he was ready to do something different. And so his son went to school for business and marketing. And the idea was born to say, hey, why don't we start a marketing company? Because we could kind of see that it was becoming harder and harder and harder for these small businesses to compete. And one of the things that always made us successful as a small boutique firm is we were pretty dang good at marketing. We were one of the first brokerages to be doing Google AdWords before it was cool. We'd done direct mailers, webinars, newsletters. We're competing against Charles Schwab's and TD Ameritrade's and all those. And, here we are, a brokerage house of like 6 boutique commodities brokers competing at that level, right? So marketing was super powerful, and we just kind of understood that. So we kind of jumped in with this model that was, you get a website for free as long as you pay to do marketing with us, right? Because we just kind of knew that was the most important piece. About a year into the life of that business, we were approached by a company called BigCommerce. They're one of the largest e-commerce platforms out there. They compete with like Shopify. And so they were growing. They were this old legacy hardware software called Interspire. And so they were trying to build this online, cloud-based e-commerce platform. They were really good at that, but they sucked at design. So they were finding design partners. Well, when you're in a new business mode, right? Somebody comes to you and says, hey, we want to make you a partner and we're going to give you leads. You're like, heck yeah, I'll take it all day, right? So we scaled quickly. That really helped the business blow up on the website design side. And then we could see that the industry was shifting again. Wix was coming out, web.com was coming out, Square was coming out. So the website design space was getting really commoditized. And so I stuck with the brokerage business till about 2011, almost 2012. And that's what was feeding the design business and the marketing business. And then after sleeping with a laptop next to my bed, watching things like the coffee market open at 2:00 in the morning, which is incredibly exhausting, I was going to leave and go be a financial planner. And they said, hey, do you want to come run business development? Do you want to be the chief strategy officer effectively? And so I came on and helped build up the marketing product. We kind of revamped this marketing idea. We started doing websites included again and scaled up vertical-based marketing. So we had chiropractic marketing, plumber marketing, real estate marketing, roofer marketing, et cetera, until we had like 100 verticals that we were serving. And we went from, when I officially came on, I think we were like 25 employees. We went from 25 employees to just shy of 600. In 2019, we did a little over 100 million. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of it. I built 5 departments, hired north of 400 people. And after a long time of doing that, I kind of just felt like there wasn't much else for me to do. I love building things. And honestly, if I hadn't been able to be so entrepreneurial within that organization, I probably would have left a long time ago.
Right.
Because it's like music. Entrepreneurship's like music. You just hear the song and you got to play it, right? And so you have this idea and you just got to go do it. And so I stepped out of the company. 2020 was like the big precipice for me to just fully exit out of the company. And I've just been focused full time on real estate since then. And I've never looked back. I love it, every bit of it.
Amazing. And through that process, you were able to invest in some properties of your own, as you mentioned. And then you got your real estate license. And now you have GrowthView, which is focusing on a multifamily apartment syndication. So,
correct.
Starting with your own starter home with you and your wife, and then building up on probably single family, I'm guessing, investment properties at first, right? Yep. Pulling equity out, getting another one, pulling equity out, getting another one. What was the cross between, hey, what over here, there's this 6 unit, right? Or, oh, interesting. What if there's this 100 unit deal that, I can't afford it, but what if I got some people together and did the syndication? Like, how did that come about?
It's just scale, man. Being a part of a marketing and technology company, when you're in tech, you're constantly thinking about scale. How do I move faster, quicker, bigger, better? And you could get to 100 units in 15 years hitting singles and doubles. That sounds exhausting to me, right? But the beautiful thing about syndication is you can help a lot of people get access to an investment that would otherwise be unattainable and literally get the same, if not better returns than they could get in a single family property, and help a lot of people from the investment side as well, just by leveraging your knowledge and your skill set and your ability to kind of bring the deal together.
Right.
So when I finally kind of understood that, I already had the background in investment, already had the background in scaling companies and scaling teams and doing all that. I knew how to kind of put it together. And the very first thing I did is I went out and just started looking at who are the top companies that I think are doing it really well, and then started seeking out good mentors. and saying, hey, teach me what you know. Like, I know a lot, but you guys got a 10-year start on me. You know what I mean? Teach me what you know. And then from there, I met other people who were kind of on the same path that shared like the same heart to do the same kind of things that I wanted to do. And we said, instead of us doing this individually, why don't we just come together? And we all had our individual talents, me being on the commercial brokerage side and scaling companies and strategy. I act as the president on that side, but my other partner, he's literally like, his job is to professionally underwrite commercial real estate loans, right? So when it comes to the underwriting side, I'm competent and capable, but the guy does it, 8, 12 hours a day, like every day. He can do it in his sleep. He can read a T12 and financials like that. You know what I mean? So we really lean on him for his expertise. And then my other partner comes from private equity, and he kind of handles like the back end stuff. And then my other partner, Brad, he's actually in the military. He's a military strategist. The reason that we're safe in this country, he's one of those people that goes and fights terrorists and stuff like that.
Right.
So when it comes to like strategy and let's go execute on high level deals and processes and stuff like that, he crushes it on that. So that's kind of how it came about, was just started with an idea, see an opportunity to help a lot of people, scale a lot faster from my own personal portfolio, do something that I'm really passionate about and love doing. And then you just kind of jump out into that journey and follow your purpose and your path. And God puts the right people in your life that just show up, and you just got to be awake enough to say, hey, let's do this together.
So true. Isn't that interesting how you set an intention, you set on a path, and then all of a sudden the universe starts to conspire to help you?
100%.
So interesting. I had dream boards throughout the years. I have one right behind this computer screen. And when I start checking off all these things as the months and years go on, because I have this right in front of me every day, I'm looking at it and it's like, oh, that came true. I actually need to X that off. I always ask myself at the end of it, when I need to start a new one, like, why didn't I aim bigger?
Totally.
like why don't, if every time I set my sights on something and I'm consistent and I stick with it, and I try and learn and grow and analyze what's working, what's not working, I take the actions, I do the work. If 100% of the time it happens, why not aim bigger? And, I think you did great on, well, I could keep doing onesie twosies, but like, why not just put it all together? Use my network, maybe people I haven't met yet, but will in the future, expertise, and like, let's do this thing for real and go after those ones that are 100 units.
Well, if you stop and you think about it, let's just say that you were able to buy, I don't know, you're doing well enough that you can buy one new fourplex a year for 3 years. Cool. You got 12 units. Let's say you bought no units for 3 years and you just focused all your attention on building network, building a team, scaling, finding the right deal. And 3 years later, you buy 100 units. It's like, I just outscaled everything else by simply focusing my attention on the right thing, right? Is this $10 an hour work, or is this $100,000 an hour work, right?
Right.
And so most people can't live in that uncertainty for that long. It takes time to get a deal done. It takes time. If you're judicious, you can go find a deal and you can pay a premium, and you can do that all day. Go buy a fully marketed deal and, pay above market cap rates for it all day. But if you want to find a good deal, you got to screen and call off market properties and fly to markets and meet brokers and have conversations and build relationships. And constantly you're raising and nurturing capital, finding joint venture partners to go work with. That's not easy. You're not going to do that overnight. And most people, they just can't handle that. Because it feels easier to be in control of the whole thing, you know what I mean? And just do this little onesie twosie over here. But to your point, you're like, that's a small thought process. So the reason it's called growth view is because you got to have a growth mindset to be in syndication. That you can't buy that $15 million apartment complex by yourself, right? You have to do it with other people. And it's the view, VUE, vested, united equity, right? Because like we're all in it together. Like there's thoughts behind that. A closed mindset says, I can't do that. I don't have the money. That's too big, right? I don't have enough capital. That'll take too long. That's too much work, right? And so, yeah, I'm huge on just goal setting and projecting into the world what you want to happen. And it's almost like you have to act as if it already happened, which is hard, But when you have that kind of internal belief, like it's almost impossible. Like you said, consistently, eventually you'll win. It's just a matter of time.
Right. Exactly. And something you just mentioned there towards the end was very interesting to me, because my agency, STEEZY.Digital, we offer branding, advertising, and consulting. And one thing that I've noticed on the commercial side is a severe lack of innovative thinking when it comes to branding and advertising. And so something that you mentioned, growth view, vested united equity. You got to have a growth mindset. The story and the thought process behind even the name of the company. That is the deeper parts of branding that I offer as a service, and I'm able to help real estate professionals on both residential and commercial to get to. But in your experience now, being in the commercial space, do you notice that is a similar trend where like the commercial side, a lot of them are very old school, and they're not doing a lot of the more cutting edge things that you're doing, coming from that marketing technology background?
Oh man, 100%. So at the time when I was a commodities broker in 2008, that was the age of real-time quotes. So it used to be, this is the same thing in real estate. The real estate broker held the book. So the real estate broker had all the power. It's the same thing on the stock side. So when you're a stockbroker, your customer calls you, you call down to the floor, and commodities was kind of a little bit behind in terms of their tech and quotes and stuff. You still called the floor, and customer would pay you $20 when you bought them something and $20 when you sold them. And so you do a ton of volume. Well, E-Trade came out, Schwab came out, TD Ameritrade came out with real-time quotes. And now the customer could go without the broker and they could do it for $5. So when that happens, you better start to come up with some more ways to add value to the customer to get them to keep trading with you, right? So we started doing a ton of managed money. We started doing trading programs, trading newsletters, building trading indicators and things like that to really try to give us an edge over the bigger shops who could just do more volume at less. We had no value at that point. So it's already happening. The commercial brokers just aren't aware that it's happening. It's already happening. I mean, Zillow just went and bought out Showing Time. They're now an actual broker in the state of Colorado. I don't know what that looks like across. You've seen the commercials for Redfin. They're taking over the market through technology, and the middle of the market broker is going to get marginalized. And commercial is a little bit delayed, but it's happening. So when I come in with new eyes, right? I wasn't a broker I haven't been a broker for very long, because brokering it's cool. I love it. It's exciting, but it doesn't get me juiced like putting deals together. It does, right? But when you come into that space and you see all these old dogs that just operate like they always have, and they're not updating, and you're comparing all the brokers, Cushman, JLL, CBRE, right? Marcus & Millichap, Remax Commercial, Waypoint, some guy that's, independent. What's going to make you different? It's like, okay, I'm going to put your listing through CoStar. I'm going to put it on Build Out. It's going to syndicate to LoopNet. It's like, what are you offering that's different? So if I can't show you through my own skill set that I'm different through my own marketing capabilities, now it just becomes a giant, excuse my French, pissing contest of, which brokerage house has more tenure and is more. Forget all that. When I walk in, I say, listen, the reason that we're talking is you've seen my branding, you've seen my advertising, you know who I am within the community. I spent 9 years scaling a large marketing and technology company. I own multiple businesses, and I'm an investor. And there's not a single broker that you're going to speak to other than me that can say that. I see the world differently than every one of these guys. And I've sat on your side of the table before. And so the only way you can do that is if you have a brand that like kind of echoes that and speaks that, and you're communicating that. These commercial brokers are like, oh, but we have our own proprietary system. No, you don't. There's nothing like real estate underwriting a real estate deal is underwriting a real estate deal. You might have some key relationships, but it would be so much more powerful to take that expertise and flex and say, look at my expertise and my knowledge. I am the resident expert. And every time you look for anything and everything around commercial real estate, guess what? I'm there. I'm the person that's telling you what to do and giving you the insight. Now I don't even have to convince you anymore, right? You've already made the decision before we've even talked that I'm the guy that you want to work with. My very first deal that I got, my very first deals I got as a quote unquote broker was literally somebody from my network and said, hey, my uncle just got an offer from a developer on his property. He got a letter of intent. He'd never seen a letter of intent before. He got a letter of intent. He doesn't know what to do. He's worried he's going to get screwed. And I think that you could help him. Would you help him? I was like, absolutely, I'd help him, right? Just because I had marketing and branding out there. That was it.
That's it. And you nailed it when you talked about the difference between coming in when the listing appointment or whatever you want to, the appointment that you're going to has been pre-marketed to based on your exposure to the world, them searching you on Google before you show up, or them coming through a Google PPC funnel or a Facebook ad, or, immediately after they stop on the website one time, they're immediately retargeted with brand awareness videos proving, here's a deal that closed for X. Here are our mission, vision, values. Here's this, here's that. And then they've had 7-10 impressions prior to you even walking in the door.
Yep.
Now you're not a commodity.
No
right?
way.
You came from the commodities world, so I wanted to frame it like that.
Good
when you look at CBRE and Cushman & Wakefield and all the other ones, and you're just like, who should represent me? Well, if they're all the same, then it's a commodity. It's like, oh, well, who's going to do a lower commission? But
race to the bottom, right?
Yes, race to the bottom. Branding allows you to step outside that because you build a separate set of value and connection with the customer. And if you want to go even deeper, if your why aligns with their why, meaning like if you're truly doing this because your mission is to, empower people with commercial real estate investment so that they can then go live out their philanthropic dream, and you say that on a video or it's in your core mission, vision, values, that could be considered from a old dog commercial broker as foo-foo branding. But if a super wealthy investor comes across and reads that and they're like, that's exactly why I've become successful in business, to give back. Yep. You're the only choice.
Absolutely. Right? Man, it's crazy, but you talked about Facebook, right? People hate on Facebook, Facebook's dead, whatever. But like one of the simplest strategies that I use is on Facebook. A lot of the people in commercial who have the money, who are buying, who are big players, guess what? The fastest growing segment on Facebook is the older generation, right? So I'm networking like crazy. I'll take every friend request, whatever. And then I send them over to follow my commercial real estate page. And then I retarget the crap out of every person that likes my Facebook page, right? And that just is it's renting space in their mind constantly, right? And then they see me over on LinkedIn, right? And then my name comes up in the community, and they see me on a podcast. You know what I mean? There's not a ton of guys up here that are thinking about, hey, I'm going to go on 24 podcasts in the next 6 months, because that creates a crap load of content that I can share and market and retarget and advertise. It goes over their head because it's not instant gratification. Brand marketing is not instant gratification. It takes time, right? You got to rent space in your mind. How many touches is it now? It's like 7 touches or something you have to have with somebody before you really start to resonate in their mind.
Yep, it's 7. So with that being said, I always break down advertising to someone who's asking me about it in a consulting call, or, someone who hasn't quite, they're not spending 40 or 60 grand a month on advertising like some of my clients, but they're ready to start getting into it. I say, okay, there's 2 types of advertising: brand awareness and direct response.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to do both for you, and they're going to feed into each other. So you mentioned the brand awareness play. I love how much time we spent on that because I don't get to spend that much time on it in most interviews. Let's talk more about direct response now. So how are you sourcing deals? What are your sources? What are some of your tactics that you're using right now?
Yeah, so I use some low tech on that, to be honest, which is leveraging a platform like Reonomy, for example, which allows you to source, specific categories. So the way that I think about brokerage is, if I'm going to go solicit somebody, I want there to also be an opportunity, because I might buy it as an investor, right? So for example, in Weld County, where I'm at, buying land and being able to subdivide land is incredibly valuable, because there's just, these builders have nowhere to build, right? So I can go into Reonomy, I can go pull up tech, and I can say, okay, give me everything over, 300 acres that's in this county that kind of falls under this designation, that hasn't had any debt put on it in the last 5 years or something like that. Draw down that list, and we can call on those people. But we talked about the importance of hiring people, so I have a young dog on my team who wants to get into commercial, who wants to be a commercial broker. So I built him into my team as a market development rep. And so his whole job is to book appointments, call, keep the network nurtured while I build the marketing side. He's working on the prospecting side. I haven't launched my Google ads yet because I haven't really had to, but definitely, having a presence on Google in your local market is vital. You can leverage other platforms too, like, marketing on the back of names like LoopNet and things like that kind of indicate when somebody's actually like looking for what you have to offer, for example. And then building your list, building a massive email list is still a viable way to get your listings in front of people, to reach out with things that you have going on, stay in touch, building webinars and things like that. So,
right. But as far as deal sourcing, it's a little bit that old school, using property data or different data sources to get a list based on the criteria that you're interested in representing, and then calling on them.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's most, surprisingly, a lot of brokers don't like to cold call. So we still do that. I mean, if you could do an hour a day consistently, I mean, you can have a ton of success from that.
Yeah, so absolutely. And I mean, comes down to like the fundamentals of the job. It's like, if you're not going to do that or have someone do that, then you might want to get another job or a different position. Totally. But, at the same time, there are some interesting ways to attract people to you, as you mentioned. Inbound strategies, webinars, information products, Google PPC, where you're getting people when they're typing something in and they're at a high intent phase of their buyer or seller journey.
Correct.
And thinking about it in that way is interesting. So, my agency has spent most of our time over the last 4 years on the residential side. However, more recently, we have started to do commercial real estate lead generation, even on, Facebook, and doing strategies like 1031 secrets, and doing an ebook describing the ins and outs of a 1031, and that's attracting who? People that own property and are interested in exchanging it.
Exactly.
So yeah, that one in particular is for a broker in San Diego who's one of my clients, and it's doing quite well at pulling people out of social media and raising their hands saying, this is something I'm interested in. So we're looking at different types of cutting edge strategies, because he was the guy who did the 8 hours of cold calling a day until he got his first deals. And then, as he built the momentum, he still does, a couple hours a day. And we're trying to help automate some of that to where you don't automate the conversation. You tee up the conversation so the automation happens prior to it in the pre-marketing, in being smart about the types of lead magnets and content you're creating so that it's in line with what people are actually searching, keyword research, right?
100%.
So you guys are doing, I'm sure, all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So, that's, to me, like I said, business breaks into 3 categories: sales and marketing, operations, HR and finance. And so it's hard to be coming up with ideation, right, and doing marketing, which I'm pretty dang good at, and simultaneously being the guy hammering the phones, right? So you either need to hire a good agency who gets it, right, who understands the marketing piece, because marketing and sales, they work together, but they're not the same thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then within the marketing category, you got your branding, and then you got your direct response type of, inbound strategies. And so part of like why I have somebody on my team who can prospect is so that I can free up time and bandwidth to focus on those types of things, right? It's all an investment that will pay dividends in the future too. I think that's the other thing, especially in commercial. It's like you're consulting people on investment sales or making acquisitions as an investment, but you can't wrap your head around the fact that if I put, $1,000 in here and I get one deal from it, that it's going to 10x that return. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's, they don't understand it. You know what I mean? At least like I do. I spent 9 years in it. So it's a little different.
Right. And, when it comes to scaling businesses, it seems like that's something that you've been able to do successfully, right? Hiring over 400 people and having a lot of things going on at once, having your own investments. It becomes important to not say yes to every single thing that comes across your plate. So what's your process for evaluating what to say no to?
Yeah, as you get more successful, more people want you to work on projects that are important to you. So for me,
that might be interesting and exciting, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have ideas all the time, like, oh man, if we built X, Y, and Z, we would just kill it, but that means I would completely have to shift gears. So for me, it just comes down to one thing: is I get excited about real estate, right? So I get excited about putting deals together. And so it always kind of just comes back to that. I'm part owner in a gym, right? So I own a really awesome strength and conditioning facility. We've got 7 coaches, 300 members. It's sweet. But I'm more excited about scaling that business to go do the McDonald's strategy and own all the real estate underneath the gym than I am about the gym. Now, I love the gym. I love training and all that stuff. You know what I mean? But it always just comes down to like that real estate strategy. But I focus a lot just on time. Like, what's this time commitment? I've been presented with some really cool opportunities to join some really cool companies and go be, their VP of whatever, strategy or chief marketing officer or whatever. And I'm like, but that means I have to go in an office for 8 hours a day and report to somebody else. Like, no, thanks. I like being able to get up, train, take my kids to school, control my own day, build my own team, control my own destiny. And so for me, it's on the entrepreneur side, like that's just how it works. And then brokerage is just a means to an end. It helps you build your network for investors. It helps you get access to more deals, right? So it helps you make some money that you can parlay into other investment opportunities. And I just keep focused on, my long-term goal, which is just to be 100% just deal making and developing and syndicating. Like that's it, so I'm not quite there to where I can do that 100% of the time, but that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And if I'm hearing you, that comes back to lifestyle design.
Absolutely.
Right? Being able to spend time with your family, being able to set your own schedule, and not in a way where you wake up whenever you want to. More so, hey, you're still waking up nice and early, but you don't have to worry about being at the office at 9. You instead are able to set your day to where you still get everything done, and maybe it's in a different order, but you're checking off things that are most important to you, and you're actually living a life that you love. So
yeah, I'm not waiting to enjoy my life. I still wake up at 4:30 every day and go hit the gym. You know what I mean? Like that. That's just, you can't play football for as long as I did and like not have that ingrained in you. You know what I mean? But it's so you make a bunch of money, but you like lose your wife and your kids in the process. That's just not worth it to me.
Right.
You said it before, but consistency is the ultimate superpower. So just being consistent will ultimately get you there. And when you're there, you'll have more staying power than, trying to rocket ship up and get to the top and then look around and realize your entire rest of your life is a disaster. You're out of shape. You have no relationship with your kids. Your wife wants you to divorce you. That's not true wealth to me. And that's not what I'm building, And you can live a really good life and be consistent and still achieve all those great, big, magnificent goals. It just might not happen in 2 years.
Right. You can have it all, maybe just not at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So something that you mentioned with, having success in one area of your life, but sacrificing all others. I feel like because we live in the information age where we have access to unlimited amounts of information, and therefore you can start to sift through and seek out wisdom in that information. We've heard those stories so many times nowadays where it used to be much less common to share those types of failures and those types of things. Yep. Where someone makes it, but they're on their 4th marriage and this and that. And, we can now as human beings learn from those because, true wisdom is learning from someone else's experience. Knowledge is learning from your own experiences.
Agreed.
Wisdom is learning from other people. So, we can have that wisdom imparted to us and we're able to then learn from it and have a much more balanced life. And that's something that I am huge on is, that Tony Robbins talks about like the 6 areas of life. Other coaches talk about 7 or whatever it is, but it includes something along these lines: family, finances, your physical body, your emotional well-being, your contribution, right? And as it's going into a more balanced picture than just like make as much money as possible at any cost.
Yes. Right? There's plenty of very, very, very wealthy people who are miserable.
Yep.
Tony Robbins also talks about the art of achievement versus the art of fulfillment, and I think he uses the example of Robin Williams as a guy who, seemingly had everything, but still killed himself. It's just like, that's not the kind of life that I want to live. I've been given this wonderful gift of this incredible woman that I've been married to for 12 years. We've been together for 15, going on 16 years, 2 awesome little kids, 2 little girls, 7 and 9. And I want to be a part of that, because one day I'm going to look back on my deathbed and I'm surely not going to say, oh, I'm so glad that I put in that 60-hour a week and missed my kids' gymnastics,
Right.
I'm going to say, no, I was there for all of it, and we have a great relationship. And so you can still have your cake and eat it too, if you're focused on, living below your means and investing the difference and building up cash flow that affords you the time freedom to do whatever the heck you want.
That's really it. I thought early on when I started to realize, my father worked super hard and he had his sole proprietorship. My mom was an entrepreneur, but was never phenomenal with money. And then when the 2008 crisis hit, both of them were strained by that. And so it's like, man, money is the first obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're born in this world that we live in today, money is life's first obstacle, because once that is taken care of on a monthly basis based on your income producing assets, now you can do whatever you want. And that doesn't have to mean that you go sit on the beach and retire at 22 or 30 or whatever. You can now go be of service, create amazing music that inspires millions of people for generations. You can learn to then master things that you truly care about and are great at. And the only thing holding you back from that is money, right? And so it's like you mentioned, building that cash flow up and then be able to focus on what's truly important in this life. And it seems like that's what you guys are helping, not only yourselves, but investors who are working with Growth View to accomplish, which is great.
Yeah, 100%. I think most people love the idea of owning real estate, and they love the idea that they can get all these benefits of cash flow, appreciation, low pay down, all the depreciation and tax benefits that come with it. They read the books, they go to the webinars, listen to the podcasts, and they go, shoot, I don't have enough time to do that. I didn't realize I was going to have to go build my own business to do this, or I don't have enough money to get access to the best deals. So then they kind of hit this crossroads where they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go traditional investing. Well, the whole entire ecosystem is set up to push you to traditional investing. There's a better way, a different way to get access to real estate in a direct capacity, have all the benefits that come along with owning it, but none of the brain damage. And that's just passive investing, being a limited partner in these larger deals that effectively drive better returns, in my personal opinion. This is not financial advice, but you know what I'm saying? It's a better way to get there. Then you can focus on crushing it in your business. You can focus on crushing it in your W-2 or whatever it is. I know plenty of people who are LPs who crush it. They're great marketers. They're great business people, but they don't know anything about real estate. They don't have the time to do it, but they want diversification into that asset class. Well, shoot, that's the best way to do it. I think what stops people, though, is just the confidence and the knowledge to do that. Very, very wealthy people are capable of critically analyzing deals. They're not trying to do every deal. They're not trying to invest in everything. Look at all these NBA stars, right? They take their money and like, oh, he was the first investor in X, Y, and Z, right? Or Shaquille O'Neal owns, tons of businesses and tons of real estate. I guarantee you that he wasn't just sitting there trying to be the master of all these things. He had enough knowledge and expertise to understand how to critically analyze it. He had smart people around him that he trusted, and then he went and executed on that. And that's the difference between people who build a lot of wealth and people who don't. You don't need to hit home runs. You just need to do it consistently. But if you're paralyzed because you don't feel confident in doing that, then 10 years goes by and you're like, shoot, you missed out on a lot of opportunities to build cash flow.
You're in the same spot. And talking about, 10 years, 5 years, in the last, let's say 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Ooh, man, that is a really good question. Okay, perfect. So we talked about what I call the 7 categories of goals. Zig Ziglar was a big advocate for this. Dave Ramsey, who I wrestle with his advice, but I do listen to him in this area.
Right.
It's your faith, your family, your finances, your career, your social life, your mental growth or health, and your physical health. And you got to have a goal in all those areas. And if you really want to be fulfilled and you want to be crushing it, you got to pay attention to those things. So I'm not a big journaler. I'm not somebody who just sit down and, write poetry and express my thoughts. I'm very pragmatic in my systems-based mind on how I get stuff done. So I wanted to make sure that I'm always giving my wife what she needs while simultaneously growing my business, taking care of my finances and all that. So I just took those categories, and every day before I go to the gym, I drive to the gym, sit there, I kick on the light, pull out my notebook, and I write all those things down, and I just take inventory. How am I doing? How did I do in my faith yesterday? How did I do with my family? And sometimes you're like, oh man, I got home, I was stressed out, checked out, stayed on my phone for way too long, didn't play with my kids, you know what I mean? And so it just recalibrates you and says, okay, tonight, here's what I got to do different. But people don't do that. They don't pay enough attention to that and to what we were talking about before. They'll build a big business and lift their head up and they're like, oh, my kids are going to college now and I don't have any relationship with them. My wife is telling me she wants a divorce. That seems strange. It's like, yeah, wake up. You're not taking inventory on like what's going on in your life. When you do that though, man, you have a lot more balance. You're a lot happier. I know for myself, whenever I'm feeling stressed out, it's because one of those areas of my life is dominating. If I'm working 90 hours a week and I feel like death and I haven't worked out, I'm not going to be very happy. I'm not going to feel very good about myself. And so I need to go back and take inventory. And I just try to do it on a regular basis. At least 3 days a week, I'm going in and just taking inventory.
Wow, that's a really interesting habit. Taking inventory in the exact categories of your life that you've identified as being the most important. Many personal development coaches, as you mentioned, have already done this for you, so you can easily look it up if you're
Yep.
struggling with what categories to focus on. Also, Samson just mentioned them. So going in there and thinking, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute best, how did I do? But then the other part is, which was so key, and you mentioned this, what do I now need to do differently to get back on track? It's
Yes.
not only the analysis, but it's also then setting the plan and the intention to get back on track. So super key. And right now I'm waking up at 5:30. I'm at the gym at 6. This is the second podcast I recorded today where my
Nice.
guest said they woke up at 4:30.
You
So
got some work to do, bro.
that's up in my bar. So that's my new habit to step it up. But I love the inventory. That's something that I learned from coaching and mentoring was a weekly planning. But before you plan the next week, probably be good to journal and review the previous week. And then every month, you then journal and review the previous month before you plan out the next 30, 40 days. And I'll tell you, that has been instrumental in the last couple of years of my business, happiness, physical body, life, wealth, everything, is that review that I never used to do. Because if you don't review it, if you don't take inventory, then you can be going down this path where it's unfulfilling, a waste of time, and it's not the highest and best use of your resources. And you just keep chugging away because you're a grinder, you're willing to work and be consistent, but you're not putting that energy in the most efficient way that it could be. And so
100%.
when it comes back to it, it's like, what is life really about? Well, it's about, family, being fulfilled, having, happiness in your life and giving back to others. And like all the other stuff is secondary, but it feeds into itself. So
It's a
really
means
love
to an
that.
end, like you're making money to do what? Not to care for your family, but also to contribute to your community and give yourself time freedom to work at your church and serve the poor and, do all those kinds of things that you want to do. You need some money to do stuff. Like I'm not saying that money's not important, you know what I mean? But at what cost? You know what I mean? So
Yep,
like an
absolutely.
athlete plays the game and then they go back and they study film, right? And try to get better, right? That's what taking inventory is to me. And doing it on top of a habit that you already have built in, like going to the gym, is super easy. If you've read the book Atomic Habits, he talks about habit stacking. So something that you already have a habit in and you want to add another good habit, well, stack it with something else you already do. So for me, that was, if I do it in the morning before my day gets started, before I go to the gym, I'll never miss it.
I love that. I love the concept of doing it when the world is quiet as well. Just the fact of getting up early, but
Yep.
habit stacking, that's really cool too. Is there a question that I should have asked you or, anything else that you'd like to elaborate on from earlier?
No, not particularly, man. I think that just, the reason I go on podcasts is I'm a blue collared kid. I was raised on punk rock and skateboarding. And sometimes people ask me the question like, how you do a lot or how'd you do this or that? And I've just always kind of had this relentless mindset and, just not really caring attitude about what everybody else is doing or thinking. And I just hope that more people just jump out and do that stuff, because at the end of the day, like every single one of us was put here to do something awesome. And that can be different for every person, but the world needs you to show up. They need you to get out there and do the thing that you were put here to do. And if more people were doing that, more people were pursuing the things that are on their heart, I think the world would be a lot better place. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about capitalism in the United States. That is the American dream. You can literally go out there and do it if you really want to do it. But more importantly, that's what the world needs you to do. So go do it. And that's it.
I love that. That's in alignment with my big why, which is to inspire others to pursue their dreams by leading through my own example.
100%.
I feel the exact same way about if more people in the world were doing what they wanted to do, then the suicide rates would not be where they are today. The depression, anxiety, drug use, so many problems that are out there just wouldn't be where they are because people would be happier and more fulfilled and more in alignment with what they're born to do. So that's my belief. And I really try to live that every day and inspire others to do the same.
I love it.
Well, I really appreciate you being on. How can listeners contact you?
Well, if you want to follow along, the best way to follow along with me is to just check me out on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all those major channels. Just started getting on Clubhouse too, so you can find me over there. We're running a cool Clubhouse called Alternative Assets, where we talk about everything from real estate to crypto to helping people get started to having A lot of really cool people come in and share their insight. But if you want to learn more about passive investing, more specifically to develop the skill set so that you can critically analyze deals and start putting your money to work so you don't have to, check out passiveinvesting.pro. I've put together a course over there that'll teach you everything that I know about the industry, about how you can critically analyze deals. It's called the Passive Investor Power Playbook. And there should be some other goodies if you join that list as well.
Amazing. Really appreciate it. Samson Jagoras, everyone. You have been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for being on. And I know my listeners are going to love this episode.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show, and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.